Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today, we are talking about Monopoly, the game, which will be elucidated throughout, but I have recently run into a lot of instances of Monopoly in my life, which sounds very bizarre. Somebody gave me a version of Star Wars Monopoly for Christmas, and then I recently saw the movie Heretic, which has a whole Monopoly-based monologue in it. So I was just thinking about it, and we have briefly talked about Monopoly in the past and about the history of it. We talked about Miss Monopoly, which is Mrs. Monopoly, excuse me, which was not so great, which was an edition that came out a couple years ago. But so, yeah, I thought we would just, for this Monday Mini, do a quick run through of the history of Monopoly, which I promise you is related to feminism. So, Samantha, I am very excited to hear your update about Monopoly, but have you played the board game? What were your experiences with the board game, if you have any?
I have a feeling it's similar to most other people's, especially if you played with family. If you ever played that game, it ended up with a lot of fighting and a lot of shouting, and then your father coming and ripping the game out from underneath you, saying he's going to burn this because he's tired of this BS, and then hides it for 6 months. And then you come back and play it by yourself because you can't play with your family anymore. That's my experience. No?
Yeah, no. I think that is a lot of people's experience. Some version of that. I have said it before. I won't say I hate Monopoly. I feel like a lot of people really hate Monopoly. I think it is a game that brings out a lot of tension. And I have infamously, in my family, cheated at Monopoly and still lost. And I think that says something about the game. I did have a Monopoly computer game that was Star Wars based, and I have really fond memories of that. But that you were playing with the computer, you weren't playing with like other people. And I do kind of love a lot of the very strange versions of Monopoly that are available. I have a lot of the Star Wars ones, but there are some very obscure pop culture versions of Monopoly you can get. But yes, I did want to ask you, Samantha, about, you said you've gotten back into the Monopoly mobile game.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to shout out first that not recently, but one of my favorite K-dramas actually has their version of Monopoly. It's Monopoly, but it's Korean version, and it's super interesting to see. So if you know, you know, but I love that it was like cross-culturally. It exists, and it still makes everybody fight. Yes, as in fact, so I stopped playing it for a while because my addiction was too hardcore. I never actually mentioned it. I remember like being very like elusive about it when we were talking about mobile gaming, just because I didn't want to advertise it. Obviously, they are not a sponsor. They don't care about us. They sponsor big names like Marvel people. That's fine. I'm fine. But all of that to say is that, I didn't want to give any more creed to it because it is such a popular game and it's such a time suck. But they are also very smart in getting everybody's money. It is like one of the top money makers now. And it flew to that top spot, the way like people are addicted to it. And I get it, like I said. And I stopped for a long while because I'm like, this is obsessive. Like I had it on 3 mobile devices so I can give myself cards.
Yes, I was sitting next to you once, and it was like you were like a secret agent. You were picking up different phones.
You had burner phones. I had burner phones for my Monopoly game, and I'm not the only one. Not the only one. There's a big Facebook community of people, and it's absurd. The amount of like trolling and targeting in that game is so wild. Like people have been banned for selling things. Hundreds of dollars of like black market Monopoly dice go game market. Like it's an odd phenomenon. But yes, so I stopped it because I was like, this is too much. I'm doing too much. I've spent a little bit of money and this makes me mad. I don't want to do this anymore. So, but recently one of my good friends in real life posted and was like, hey, I'm playing this. You want to play? And I was like, well, damn, let's be friends. Because now I want to steal your money. That's the whole game. I get so mad. People get mad on here because people target. So once they see that you're weak, like if you've lost all your shields or you haven't played for a while and they can come after you, they come after you. And it's mean.
I am loving this. Oh my gosh.
And they get you, Anney. They get you. They know how to get you. Whoever is working, there's a whole... I joined Discord to get the download. I'm not on Discord, y'all. I don't know how Discord works. I have an addiction, but that's why I stopped it. But I am back on, and they have revamped it. And yes, they have now made it full celebrity. Like, you can do emojis and all of this that are Marvel-based because they are now part of the sponsorship.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I really honestly enjoyed hearing about your rivalries. And
there's certain people, yes.
Their
that I was very
usernames.
mad at. Yeah.
Because their usernames were kind of comical.
Thoughtful Bunny or something along those lines.
It was very funny to me. I'm sorry for any anxiety that it caused you. But it did make me laugh. And also, I know you got your partner kind of involved in helping you out.
He was just like, why am I getting tagged on the social media posts about your game? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Just say yes.
Just yes, no questions asked.
It's fine. Anney, you're lucky I didn't get you involved, to be honest.
Oh no. I think I told the story. We were being vague about what game you were talking about at the time, the previous time we talked about it. But I did tell the story of I was waiting in line for a ride at Disney World and the person in front of me, who was a young person, was playing it on her phone. I'm really curious to hear from listeners about this, your experiences with Monopoly, but also young people, because usually we like to do a definition. And I was like, I feel like we don't have to do a definition of Monopoly, but maybe there's some people who don't know what it is. Not sure. Let us know. We'll be discussing it throughout. You can see our past episodes on tabletop gaming. Yes, the brief update episode we did on Mrs. Monopoly. Just any of our episodes on gaming in general, I would say. Okay, the game most of us know as Monopoly was based on the Landlord's game, which was designed by feminist Lizzie Magie. So Lizzie Magie created the Landlord's game in 1903 or 1904. Her father was an abolitionist, and she was very progressive, in part because of that. And also, she had a whole life. Like, I feel like it could be a female first episode. We're focusing on the game in this because it's a Monday Mini. Yes, we notoriously go very long on Monday Minis, but we are trying to stick to just the game in here. But yeah, she did a bunch of stuff. But her family moved to Washington, D.C. in the 1880s. She got work as a stenographer and typing for the dead letter office, which is basically when mail that is, for whatever reason, is undeliverable, an employee comes and they try to find a forwarding address. So she worked for them, but she was also involved in engineering, comedy and writing, reporting. When she was 26, she got a patent that involved the rollers on typewriters and more quickly moving the paper through. At this time, only 1% of women received patents. She taught political classes after work. She was an anomaly of her time in a lot of ways. She was an older single woman who was able to buy a house. She did eventually marry, but at this time she was not married. She spent a lot of time thinking about issues around monopolies, income inequality, and corruption. She was determined to do something to address it, or at least educate people about it. So she started working on a board game. She received the patent for the board game, the Landlord's game, in 1904, which was before she was allowed to vote legally, just by the way. The game was played on a square board, and players had to pass corners like go to jail or public park, all while gathering money, paying rent, and collecting properties like railroads. There were necessity spaces that provided things like food and shelter, utility spaces. Players earned money through tasks as they progressed around the board. At one corner of the board was a globe, which was an homage to her political hero, Henry George, who proposed that wealthy landowners should be responsible for the bulk of taxes. And so that space read, quote, labor upon Mother Earth produces wages. Pass and Go required players to have earned $100 or go to the poorhouse. Trespassing on land resulted in jail time and a fine. But here's the interesting thing. There were two sets of rules. The anti-monopolist rules, called prosperity, that rewarded everyone when money was earned, and the monopolist set of rules, called monopoly, that rewarded those who crushed their opponents, and you can guess which one endured. I do wonder how popular the original game, the anti-monopolist version, would be now with the rise of co-op board games. I'm just curious. I need to look into, I think you can still play it. I think it's sort of hard to get, but I think you can still play it.
I have so many games we need to play.
I know. We never released our Girl Talk.
It's still in the work. Like I still have it, but the audio was so bad that I wanted to hesitate and do a redo. But yeah, it was quite funny.
It was quite funny. We recorded us playing Girl Talk. The technology was great.
The technology was very quiet. That was one of the problems.
That was the problem, but it was fun.
But like the overall, well, first of all, going down memory lane for me, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I got the guy at the end.
She sure did. Did she want him? No, but she got him.
No, I got him. Anyway, back to Monopoly. Her goal was to create a game that demonstrated the cruelty of hoarding wealth while others were suffering. She said in 1906, quote, "In a short time, I hope a very short time, men and women will discover that they are poor because Carnegie and Rockefeller, maybe, have more than they know what to do with." She also said of it, quote, "It is a practical demonstration of the present system of land grabbing with all its usual outcomes and consequences. It might well have been called the game of life, as it contains all the elements of success and failure in the real world, and the object is the same as the human race in general seems to have, i.e. the accumulation of wealth." It was sold for a short time by a publisher in New York, but it was mostly word of mouth that helped spread it along the East Coast. People would play on things like handkerchiefs, like they would make their own version of it based on what they'd heard. And then in 1932, Charles Darrow played what was called the Monopoly game. That's how it was introduced to him, a game that wasn't sold in a box. He allegedly played a version the Quakers of Atlantic City had customized with the names of their own neighbors, which I kind of love. Darrow loved it. He fell in love with it. He sold the game as his own. That's how much he loved it. To Parker Brothers in 1935 with some changes. Obviously leaving out the anti-monopoly rules. And it was a huge success. He played it off as like this idea that he had one day, not crediting Magie at all. He made millions off of it, and it's often referred to as the first board game designer to become a millionaire. And the tale has definitely been spun by Parker Brothers and now Hasbro, which owns Monopoly, and also Darrow himself. A man struggling during the Great Depression comes up with this game, and it's a smashing success. They're still really cagey about mentioning her at all. Sometimes they'll be like, she exists, but no.
Sure. She's a woman. She's there.
She didn't. No. Magie did sell the patent to the game to Parker Brothers in 1935. She thought that more people having access to it would be a good thing in terms of her intended message and more people receiving that intended message. However, sort of the opposite happened, and instead became a symbol of cutthroat greed, of laughing when someone lost their properties and went bankrupt, of perhaps joining Discord groups, taking people down.
I'm just saying.
I get it.
It's about revenge against other landlords. For me. Okay.
I like that. At first, Maggie was quite happy after the sale, but within a year of it, she was doing angry interviews with major publications. You can read them. She was not happy. And in a 1940 census, she listed her career as maker of games and her income as 0. Oh, whew. She died in 1948 with no children and never being recognized for what she did. And this game was hugely impactful. Just to say, her design had a lasting impact on board games, especially when it came to the circular design. So many games after that took inspiration from this game. And of course, these days, it's all over pop culture. You can play it in numerous versions based on numerous franchises, play it on your phone with McDonald's. According to the company, billions of people have played Monopoly. Hasbro, the current owner, as I said, still doesn't credit her, as I said. But that has started to change. In 1973, a liberal man named Ralph Ensbach started looking into the history of Monopoly after he was sued by Parker Brothers for his anti-Monopoly game. And he learned all about her story and he started to share it. It took a long time, but Ensbach eventually won his case. And yeah, now I feel more people are aware, but still pretty small number. But It was a big part of the movie Heretic. It's more people know, but it's still pretty obscure. You have to look for it, maybe. I do want to play it. I'm really interested to see, because it's very similar, but I want to play with the anti-Monopoly rules.
Yeah.
I want to see what that is.
What's the point? You always lose?
No, it's supposed to be you build each other up.
Oh,
you all come together.
Oh. Unless you have that one person.
Well, I think that's why Monopoly happened. I think that's why that version took off. But, it made me think of a lot of the episodes we've done about creators who are women or non-binary in the gaming space. They often play with our traditional idea of what a game is. And so, like in cozy gaming, we've talked about how so many times a lot of video games are defined by violence. And that's how you succeed in your goal. But a lot of women creators are like, no, what if we did something different? Or what if we, looked at it this way? And I love that. And so I wonder, especially like I said, there is a rise of co-op games. And I know we played together Wingspan and we talked about Wingspan, but that's an example of one where you're still competitive, but you're not necessarily like competing against each other. I don't know. Like I wonder if this game would actually be pretty successful right now, because a lot of articles I read were like, well, she never managed to really sell it, so too bad for her. I'm like, well, I think it could have been pretty successful.
I mean, technically she did sell it until someone stole it.
Yeah, somebody stole it. It's like, it's mine. And then they found the patent. Like, take this money.
Right. Without understanding. I wonder if she understood that that's what they were intending. Or if she really thought they were going to do it as a whole. I
honestly would love to see a movie about this. Because, like, in my head, what I am envisioning is she really had this idea, this optimistic idea, that a lot of people would see that the Monopoly version was the bad version. Like that was and she wanted people to see, oh, this anti-Monopoly one is much better. But instead they only really sold the Monopoly version. And so that like betrayal and hurt of her idea being completely misrepresented.
Right.
And then them making all of this money off the complete misrepresentation of her work.
You know, interestingly, the mobile game have a lot of events where you have to team up with people oftentimes in order to make a successful run or whatnot. And I'm wondering, like, is that their try and take of being like, no, see, we got the other side here. It's not just because, like, the narrative has changed. Like, it went from becoming a landlord to being like, yeah, we're suspicious and we don't like landlords because it looks really gross and eat the rich type of conversation. So they're taking that, and they also need the community to foster this competitiveness as well as encouraging them. Yeah. My friend telling me he's on that game made me come back and play. But like stuff like that. And I wonder if that's their flip. Because obviously people do desire some community, not just being alone.
Yeah. That's interesting. I bet. I mean, and the thing is, as many people as they said have played Monopoly, which I completely believe, I feel like everyone I know has that story you kind of opened with. Of like the miserable, like I'm banned from playing Monopoly or my family isn't allowed to play Monopoly anymore. I wonder if they were like, maybe we should try to find a different, not so heated way of playing this game.
Also, it lasts forever.
That's true.
Forever. And it's probably one of the longest running games I've ever played outside of like
Risk.
That.
I feel like everybody has the story too of cheating. Like somebody cheating in their family. Did you one. You
know, they have household rules for different things. Uno, all this Monopoly. Monopoly is like, I don't think everyone does this, but like you have to recognize that someone's landed on your property. If you want to collect, you don't just get it. And if the person moves on before you find out, then you can't get it later. We had that rule, and that caused a lot of fights. Because people would like hurry and like roll the dice, hurry. So they didn't have to pay rent to Park Place.
And then you're suspicious of the banker.
Yes, the entire taking money.
Yes, not giving you the right. Well, one of the reasons this idea came to me is I saw a bunch of advertisements for various monopolies that are not licensed. And I know Hasbro was like, we should sue them. And it's just kind of interesting when it's like you look at the history.
They won a monopoly on monopoly, obviously. Duh.
It just kind of, my eyebrows are kind of like, I don't know. I'm not saying necessarily that those unlicensed monopolies should or shouldn't be out there. But I was just like, this is interesting that you don't like that somebody came in.
Right.
And is taking what you see as your property. Okay, cool. But I really would love listeners if you write in, if you had family rules, if you have memories, trauma with Monopoly, or any board games. You know we love board games over here. Please, please, please contact us. You can email us at stephanie@momstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can also email us at hello@stuffmomnevertoldyou.com. Both work. Choose your own adventure. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.